One of the most frequently asked question in the examination of principles of management is what is the difference between decentralization and delegation? So I'll attempt to answer this. Let's take the basis and then I will explain decentralization and delegation. In terms of meaning, decentralization is a structural policy, which means that the right to take decision is shared by top management as well as other levels of management. So the decision making is not centralized, it is decentralized. Top management has some areas where it takes decisions, then there are some areas where decision making is taken by the middle management and in some cases by junior management also. So this is decentralization. Whereas in delegation, it's a straightforward one off kind of a thing where managers can delegate some of their functions and authority to their team members. So it is not a decision of the organization, but a manager, after taking due approval from his manager, he can delegate some of the functions and authority to the subordinate. In terms of scope, the scope of decentralization is very wide, and it runs through the organization, and because the decision making is shared by the subordinates. In terms of in delegation, the scope of delegation is limited, as the supervisor delegates power on an individual basis. In terms of responsibility, when it is a decentralization, that means responsibility vests with that person or that position which is empowered to take a decision. So responsibility also is of that position, that person. Whereas in case of delegation, responsibility remains with the managers. He has just delegated some of the powers and some of the functions to the subordinate, but responsibility here remains with the manager. Naturally, so freedom of work in case of decentralization, freedom of work is very high. It is because you have to achieve the task, you are accountable for the task, you will be held responsible if you are not able to achieve that task. You can demand in tools to achieve task. Freedom is very high. You can, you're free to choose ways and means within the norms of ethics and the policy. In case of delegation, there is not so much of freedom because subordinate has been given that particular task by the manager. So manager will decide how much power to give him, in what way this is to be achieved. Okay, so freedom is not so much there in delegation. In terms of nature, decentralization is a very important decision of the enterprise. It's a philosophy of the organization. I would say it is the spirit of the organization if it wants to decentralize or it doesn't want to decentralize. But in when we talk of delegation, delegation is a routine function. Delegation is a routine function which managers do, or which managers resort to whenever they are pressed for time or whenever they have too many jobs to perform. Uh, Grant of authority, in delegation, the authority is granted by one individual to another individual on for a particular period of time on a task basis. Whereas in decentralization, because decentralization is a systematic act, so authority is placed at all levels, and it is not as if authority is given to a particular team member based upon the whims and fancies of the manager. No, the authority responsibility matrix is contained in the organization. Significance of decentralization is also high. Significance of delegation is also very high, because decentralization, as I said, this is a policy. This is a policy of the organization, and it's at the discretion of the board members and the top management with how much they want to decentralize, what they want to decentralize, at what levels, at head office level or at regional level or at divisional office level or at area managers level. In case of delegation is also significant, because even if the authority vests with only a few person, unless they delegate this authority and responsibility, then they will not be able to achieve anything. So it is also essential for creating organization. But if you see in terms of overall freedom, in decentralization, freedom is considerable, because freedom is not drawn from upwards from a position. Freedom is inherent in the structure of the organization. In case of delegation, there is very little freedom for the subordinates. So I hope I have been able to give you the finer and the nuanced differences between delegation and decentralization.